The wind carved through the Wyoming darkness like a blade through frozen flesh. It was the kind of cold that didn't just chill, it invaded, settling deep in the bones where warmth became a distant memory. The night pressed down on the mountain roads thick and suffocating, swallowing headlights whole before they could pierce more than 20 feet ahead. Deputy Kira Donovan's hands locked around the steering wheel of her Jeep Wrangler, knuckles bone white against the black leather. The dashboard clock glowed 1:47 a.m. Her breath came in sharp bursts, fogging the windshield faster than the defroster could clear it. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage wrapped around her left shoulder, warm and sticky against her uniform shirt. The metallic taste of fear coated her tongue. Behind her, three sets of headlights cut through the blizzard, not close enough to ram her bumper, not far enough to give her hope. They maintained distance with predatory patience, herding her deeper into the mountains, where roads turned to suggestions and witnesses became myths. These weren't random pursuers. They knew these roads. They knew her route options. They knew exactly where this chase would end. The radio crackled with static, then a voice she'd known for 6 years. Calm, almost friendly. Deputy Donovan, Sheriff Dalton Brennan's drawl came through like honey poured over barbed wire. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Kira's jaw clenched. She didn't answer. Couldn't trust her voice not to shake. We can talk this out, Brennan continued. You come in, we sit down, we figure out what you think you found. No need for anyone to get hurt worse than they already are. Her shoulder throbbed in disagreement. The bullet had punched clean through missing bone but tearing muscle. Every turn of the wheel sent lightning up her arm. She'd stopped feeling her fingers 10 minutes ago. Kira, the sheriff's tone sharpened. Your daddy's a United States Senator. You really think I'd let anything happen to you? Be reasonable, girl. Reasonable? The word almost made her laugh. There was nothing reasonable about what she'd discovered 3 hours ago. Nothing reasonable about the video on the USB drive digging into her hip pocket. Nothing reasonable about how quickly her own department had turned into hunters the moment she'd tried to call it in. She keyed the radio with her right hand, wincing as the motion pulled her shoulder wound. Mayday Deputy 247 officer needs assistance. Gunfire erupted behind her. Not the sharp crack of pistols, but the deeper boom of rifles. The Jeep's rear window exploded inward, safety glass spraying across the back seat like ice crystals. Kira ducked instinctively, the Jeep swerving hard right. Her front tire caught the shoulder, then the ditch, and suddenly she wasn't driving anymore. She was along for the ride. The world tilted, spun. The Jeep's frame screamed as it rolled once, twice, slamming her against the seatbelt with enough force to crack ribs. Tree branches scratched at the roof like skeletal fingers. Metal groaned, glass shattered. Then impact hard and final as the Jeep wrapped itself around a lodgepole pine. Silence fell, broken only by the tick-tick-tick of the cooling engine and the endless howl of wind through broken windows. Kira hung upside down, suspended by her seatbelt. Blood ran from her nose, hot against her cold face. Her ears rang a high-pitched whine that drowned out thought. She blinked, trying to focus. The world swam in shades of white and black and red. Move. She had to move. Her fingers found the seatbelt release, clicked it. She dropped hard onto the Jeep's ceiling now, its floor driving the air from her lungs. Pain exploded through her shoulder, her ribs, her spine. For a moment, she could only lie there, gasping each breath, a knife in her side. Behind her, up on the road, engines idled. Doors opened. Voices called out, muffled by the storm, but growing closer. Move. Now, Kira crawled through the shattered driver's window, leaving blood on the snow. Her badge caught on twisted metal. She yanked it free, not caring when the clip tore. The USB drive in her pocket pressed against her hip. Still there. Still intact. That was all that mattered. She pulled herself upright, using the Jeep's frame, legs shaking, vision tunneling. Through the trees, maybe 200 yards away, she saw it. A structure. Small, dark, barely visible against the whiteout conditions. But there was a light, faint, flickering, like a candle in a window. A cabin. Flashlight beams swept through the forest behind her. Men's voices, closer now, coordinating. She recognized them. Carl Hutchins, the deputy who always brought donuts on Fridays. Pete Vasquez, who'd helped her move into her apartment last year. Good men, she'd thought. Friends. Rowan had thought they were friends too. Kira pushed off from the Jeep and ran. The snow came up to her knees in places. Each step felt like wading through concrete. Her shoulders screamed. Her ribs ground against each other. The cold bit at her face, her hands finding every gap in her uniform. She focused on the light ahead. One foot, then the other. Don't think about the pain. Don't think about the blood. Don't think about how you're leaving a trail a blind man could follow. Just get to the cabin. The distance closed with agonizing slowness, 100 yards, 75, 50. The cabin resolved into details: weathered logs, a sagging porch, windows dark except for that single light inside. No car visible, no sign of life beyond that lone candle. 25 yards. Behind her a shout. There! She's heading for the old Hendricks place. Gunfire cracked. A bullet struck a tree to her left, sending bark exploding outward. Another kicked up snow at her feet. They weren't trying to kill her. Not yet. Brennan wanted her alive, wanted to know who else she'd told, what copies she'd made. That would change the moment they got their hands on her. 10 yards. Kira hit the porch steps and nearly collapsed. Her legs had nothing left. She caught herself on the railing, splinters driving into her palm. 3 steps. That was all. 3 steps and she'd be at the door. She climbed them on hands and knees. The door was old solid wood, probably locked. She raised her fist to pound on it, then stopped. Behind her flashlight, beams swept closer. 30 seconds, maybe less. She hammered on the door with the side of her fist. Please, her voice came out as a rasp barely audible over the wind. Please, I'm a police officer. I need help. Nothing. She pounded harder, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. Blood ran down her arm, dripping onto the weathered boards. Please. Inside, a sound, movement, heavy footsteps approaching. Behind her, men broke through the tree line. 3 of them, rifles raised, maybe 40 yards out and closing fast. The door's lock clicked. Kira turned the handle and fell inside just as the first bullet punched through the door frame where her head had been. She hit the floor hard, rolling onto her back, gasping. Above her, a figure loomed tall, broad-shouldered, backlit by candlelight. For a moment, she couldn't make out features, could only see a silhouette that blocked out the ceiling. Then he moved, and the light caught his face. Late 30s, maybe pushing 40. Clean-shaven jaw gone dark with 2 days of stubble, more gray at the temples than the rest of his close-cropped hair suggested. Hard lines around his mouth and eyes, the kind carved by years of squinting into harsh sun and harsher truths. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, old and white. His eyes were the color of winter storms, gray and unforgiving, and completely, utterly calm. He looked at her for exactly 2 seconds, took in the blood, the uniform, the badge still clipped to her belt. Then his gaze shifted to the open door behind her. How many? His voice was quiet, controlled. Military cadence. 3. Kirikov tasted copper. Maybe more coming. He nodded once, moved to the door, staying to the side of the frame. His right hand hung loose at his side, fingers slightly curled. His left reached for the door handle with practiced efficiency. Outside, boots hit the porch steps. The man, whoever he was, looked back at her. Can you move? Kira tried to push herself up. Her arms gave out. Not fast. Then stay down. He slammed the door shut and threw the deadbolt. The lock looked new, solid. Probably the only new thing in this entire cabin. The windows, though, the windows were a problem. Single pane glass, no shutters, curtains, so old they'd probably disintegrate if you touched them. A voice called from outside. Carl Hutchins. We know she's in there. Send her out and we can all go home. The man ignored him. He crossed to a corner of the cabin and lifted what looked like an old military rucksack. From it, he pulled a heavy maglite flashlight. Not a weapon, but Kira had seen what those things could do to a human skull. He clicked it on, playing the beam across the floor until it found her face. She squinted against the light. You armed? He asked. Kira's hand went to her duty belt. Empty holster. She'd lost her Glock in the crash. No. He grunted, lowered the beam, crossed back to the rucksack and pulled out something else. It caught the candlelight, a folding knife blade, maybe 4 inches, well maintained. He slid it across the floor to her. Use it if you have to. Before she could respond, before she could even process the fact that this stranger had just armed a bleeding woman who'd crashed through his door in the middle of the night, a low growl rumbled from the cabin's far corner. Kira's head snapped around. There, half hidden in shadow, was a dog. Not just any dog, a German shepherd, big even by breed standards, easily 85 pounds of muscle and bone. Its coat was the classic black and tan, but darker than most, almost sable in the dim light. Triangular ears stood at full attention. Its eyes caught the candlelight and threw it back, amber and gold. Those eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The dog didn't bark, didn't snarl, just stared, reading her in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Then slowly, deliberately, it rose to its feet. Kira saw the limp immediately. The dog favored its right rear leg, moving with the stiffness that spoke of old injuries poorly healed. A scar ran along its left flank, the fur grown back in a different texture. Another marked its shoulder shrapnel, maybe, or a knife wound. This wasn't a pet. This was a soldier. The dog limped forward, each step measured and purposeful. It stopped 3 feet from Kira, lowered its head, sniffed at her outstretched hand, at the blood on her uniform, at the badge on her belt. Then it looked back at the man. Some wordless communication passed between them. The man nodded slightly. The dog's posture relaxed just a fraction. It moved to position itself between Kira and the door, then sat, not lying down, not relaxing, watching, waiting. His name's Axel, the man said. Military working dog, 3 tours in Iraq. He doesn't like strangers, but he doesn't think you're a threat. Outside, Carl's voice again harder now. You got 30 seconds, then we're coming in. The man moved to the window, staying low and to the side. He eased the curtain back an inch, just enough to see out. Kira used the wall to pull herself into a sitting position. Every movement was agony, but she needed to think, needed to plan, needed to. Her vision grayed out. She blinked hard, fighting it back. Shock. Blood loss. The adrenaline that had kept her running was fading fast, leaving behind only pain and exhaustion so deep it felt like drowning. The man let the curtain fall, turned back to her. His expression hadn't changed, still calm, still measuring, still completely in control. You're not with them, he said, not a question. No. They're not trying to arrest you. No. He nodded like that confirmed something. How bad's the shoulder? Through and through, missed bone, ribs, cracked, maybe broken. Can you shoot with your right hand? Kira tried to flex her fingers, managed it barely. Yeah. Good. He moved back to the rucksack, pulled out a pistol, a Sig Sauer P226 military issue, well-worn but immaculate. He dropped the magazine, checked it, slapped it back home, racked the slide, handed it to her, grip first. Kira took it, surprised by the weight, or maybe surprised by how light it felt compared to everything else she was carrying. 15 rounds, he said. 1 in the chamber. Don't waste them. Who are you? Callum Hayes. Bought this place 2 days ago. Tax foreclosure auction. He said it without inflection, like it was the most normal thing in the world. $10. Despite everything, Kira almost smiled. $10? Nobody else wanted it. Can't imagine why. His tone was dry, almost amused. Utah, Deputy Kira Donovan, Fremont County Sheriff's Department. She paused. Or I was. Axel's ears twitched. He rose to his feet again, head swiveling toward the door. A low growl built in his chest, not loud, not aggressive, just a warning. A statement of fact. Something's wrong. Callum heard it too. His whole body changed, shifting from casual awareness to combat ready in the space between heartbeats. He moved to the door, put his ear against the wood. The silence outside was complete. No wind, no voices, nothing. They're moving, Callum said quietly, getting into position. Kira's grip tightened on the SIG. They'll try to breach. Front and back simultaneously. Standard rural warrant service. He looked at her. Except this isn't a warrant. No. They want you dead. Kira thought about the USB drive in her pocket, about what was on it, about Rowan's face in that video the moment he realized his own partners were going to kill him. They want this. She pulled out the drive, held it up. The small piece of plastic and metal caught the candlelight. Evidence, proof, everything they've done for the last 6 years. Callum's eyes fixed on the drive. What's on it? Video of Sheriff Dalton Brennan taking $400,000 from a cartel lieutenant. Financial records showing $2.7 million in payments over 72 months. Names, dates, drop locations. She met his gaze. My partner found it. Rowan Cross. 3 years ago, he started investigating. 2.5 years ago, he disappeared. 2 years ago, they found his body at the bottom of a ravine. Called it an accident. But it wasn't. No, Callum was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question she'd been dreading. Why didn't you go to the FBI State Police, anyone not in Brennan's pocket? Kira's laugh came out bitter. I tried. Tonight. Made it as far as the parking lot before my shift supervisor put a GPS tracker in my badge and told Brennan I was running. She touched the badge at her belt. Didn't find it until I was 20 miles out. By then they were already on me. Axel growled again, louder this time. His body went rigid, every muscle tensed. Callum moved fast, grabbed Kira's good arm, pulled her upright. Pain exploded through her shoulder and ribs, but she bit down on the scream, forced her legs to hold. Basement, Callum said. Now. What? He didn't answer, just pulled her toward the back of the cabin, Axel moving with them, still focused on the door. The cabin was smaller than it had seemed, one main room with a kitchenette, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, and a door Kira had assumed was a closet. Callum yanked it open. Stairs led down into darkness. Outside, an engine roared to life. Go, Callum ordered. Kira started down the steps, one hand on the rail, the other clutching the SIG. The stairs were old wooden, creaking under her weight. Halfway down, she heard it. The crash. A vehicle truck, probably given the sound smashing into the cabin's front wall. Wood splintered, glass shattered. The entire structure shook, dust raining from the ceiling above. Callum was right behind her, Axel at his heels. They hit the basement floor just as voices erupted upstairs. Boots, shouts, the unmistakable sound of men with guns clearing a room. The basement was dirt-floored, low-ceilinged, smelling of earth and old stone. Callum clicked on his maglite, swept the beam across the space. Empty except for there, in the far corner, an opening in the foundation wall, maybe 3 feet high, 2 feet wide. Beyond it, darkness and the smell of deeper earth. Mine shaft, Callum said. Old copper mine, 19th century. Owners sealed it when they built the cabin, but the seals rotted through. Above them, floorboards groaned under heavy weight. A voice Pete Vasquez called out. Clear, she's not here. Another voice, Carl Hutchins. Check the basement. Callum grabbed Kira's arm again. Can you crawl? She looked at the opening, at the darkness beyond, at the very real possibility of getting stuck in a collapsed mine shaft while bleeding and going into shock. Then she looked at the basement stairs where flashlight beams were already beginning to descend. Yeah, she said. I can crawl. Axel went first, disappearing into the opening without hesitation. Kira followed, dropping to hands and knees, ignoring the scream from her ribs. The tunnel was tight, claustrophobic, the walls pressing in from both sides. She could feel Callum behind her, moving with surprising grace for a man his size. Behind them, boots hit the basement floor. Footprints, Carl's voice excited. They went into the mine. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the tunnel entrance like lightning. Bullets ricocheted off stone, whining past Kira's head. She scrambled forward to faster, her shoulder weeping fresh blood, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The tunnel opened up. Suddenly she had room to stand, though the ceiling still forced a crouch. Callum's maglite beams swept the space, a larger chamber, maybe 12 feet across, with 3 more tunnel openings leading deeper into the mountain. Left, Callum said. No hesitation. He'd already made the choice. They ran. Behind them, Carl and Pete were in the tunnel now, flashlights bobbing, voices echoing off stone. But they were bigger men, moving slower, more cautious. The gap widened. Kira's legs were rubber. Her vision tunneled. She was running on empty, had been for the last hour, and there was nothing left in the tank. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying, and she hadn't come this far to die in a hole in the ground. Ahead, Axel barked once, sharp, urgent. Callum stopped so fast Kira ran into his back. What? Smell that, she did. Cold air, fresh, moving air. Not the stale deadness of deep earth. Another exit, Callum said. They followed Axel through 2 more chambers, 1 more narrow passage. The smell of fresh air grew stronger. Then Kira saw it, moonlight faint and silver filtering down through a crack in the earth above. A cave-in, decades old. But it had opened the shaft to the surface. The surface creating a natural chimney, maybe 15 feet high. The bottom was choked with fallen rock and frozen snow, but there was a gap, a way through. Callum went first, testing the rocks, finding the path. Then he reached back for Kira. Come on, I'll pull you through. She took his hand. His grip was solid, rough with calluses, and when he pulled, he did so with the kind of strength that came from years of hauling weighted gear through hostile terrain. She scrambled up the rock pile, feet slipping, shoulder screaming, and then she was through the gap and out into the open air. The cold hit her like a physical blow. After the relatively warm tunnel, the Wyoming night felt like being plunged into ice water. But the sky was there, stars visible between racing clouds, and that was freedom. Axel emerged beside her, then Callum. The cave-in had brought them out on a hillside overlooking the cabin, maybe 200 yards east. Below, she could see lights, flashlights, headlights, the red and blue of sheriff's vehicles. 5 trucks now, maybe 12 men. They weren't leaving anything to chance. Callum studied the terrain, the positions, the angles. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. 300 yards northeast. Old barn partially collapsed. We can make it if we move now while they're focused on the mine. Can he? Kira looked at Axel. The dog was panting heavily, its injured leg trembling. He'll make it. Callum didn't sound certain, but there were no other options. They moved. The snow was deep here, untouched by plows or footprints. Each step sank knee-deep, requiring effort to pull free, to push forward. Kira fell twice. The second time, she wasn't sure she'd get back up. But Callum's hand found her arm, hauled her upright, and they kept moving. Axel struggled. Kira could see it in the way he moved, the limp growing more pronounced, his breaths coming harder. But the dog never stopped, never slowed, never once looked back. 300 yards might as well have been 3 miles. But they made it. The barn materialized from the darkness like a ghost of better times. 3 walls still standing, the fourth collapsed inward. The roof sagged dangerously, held up by beams that looked ready to give at the first strong wind. But it was shelter, it was concealment, it was a chance. They pushed through a gap in the boards and collapsed inside. For a long moment, none of them moved. Kira lay on her back in the old hay, staring up at the stars visible through holes in the roof, trying to remember how to breathe. Beside her, Axel panted heavily, his whole body shaking. Even Callum looked winded, though he recovered faster, was already moving to check the other entrances. Kira's hands shook as she reached for her shoulder. The bleeding had slowed, but not stopped. The bandage was soaked through, freezing in the cold air. She needed stitches, antibiotics, warmth. She needed about 6 things she wasn't going to get. Callum returned, dropped to one knee beside her. His hands moved with clinical efficiency, checking her pulse, her pupils, her skin temperature. "You're going into shock," he said. "I know. I need to rebandage that shoulder. Going to hurt. Everything hurts." He almost smiled. Almost. Then he was pulling a small first aid kit from inside his jacket, military issue, the kind that deployed with special operations teams. From it, he took gauze, medical tape, and a small bottle of saline solution. "Cleanest thing I've got," he said, seeing her look. He cut away the old bandage with swift, sure movements. The wound beneath was ugly entry hole in the front of her shoulder, exit wound in the back, both rimmed with bruising and caked blood. He poured the saline over both, washing away the worst of the debris. Kira bit down on her sleeve to keep from crying out. "Sorry," Callum said, not sorry enough to stop. He packed the wounds with gauze, wrapped them tight with medical tape. His hands were steady, practiced. He'd done this before, many times before. "You're a medic," Kira managed. Was, long time ago. Military to Navy, SEAL Team 3. He said it without pride or shame, just stating fact. Did 8 years. Got out in 2021. That explained the calm, the efficiency, the way he'd assessed the tactical situation and made decisions in seconds that most people would have agonized over. "Why'd you leave?" Callum's hands paused for just a moment, then resumed their work. "Got hurt, IED in Fallujah. Nerve damage in my right arm. Can't grip with it anymore. Can't pass the physical requirements. So they thanked me for my service and sent me home." He finished the bandaging, sat back. In the dim light filtering through the barn's gaps, Kira could see his right hand now. It trembled slightly, the fingers curled in a way that suggested permanent damage, an injury that would have ended anyone's military career, let alone a SEAL's. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. I'm alive. My whole team isn't." He looked away, jaw tight. "IED. Under a building we were clearing. I was in the doorway when it went off, got thrown clear. Rest of them," he didn't finish, didn't need to. Kira understood. Survivor's guilt was a language she'd learned fluently over the last 2 years. Axel limped over to Callum, pressed his head against the man's leg. Callum's left hand, his good hand, dropped to the dog's head, fingers buried in thick fur. "Found Axel in a shelter in Colorado Springs," Callum said quietly. "Military working dog, 3 tours in Iraq. Got hit by shrapnel and Mosul, hip never healed right. They retired him, put him in a shelter." His voice went flat. "They were going to euthanize him. Said he was too traumatized, too aggressive, couldn't be adopted out." "But you took him." "Yeah." Callum's fingers worked at a knot behind Axel's ear. The dog's eyes closed, leaning into the touch. "Figured we understood each other. Both broken, both used up, both put out to pasture." "You're not broken." Callum looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment Kira saw past the tactical assessment, past the calm control, to the man underneath. A man who'd lost his team, his career, his purpose, who'd been living in a truck until 2 days ago when he'd scraped together $10 for a cabin nobody else wanted. "Yes, I am," he said quietly, "but I can still do this one thing." Before Kira could ask what he meant, Axel's head snapped up. His ears swiveled forward, his body going rigid. That low growl started again, deeper this time. Callum was on his feet, instantly moving to a gap in the wall. Kira pulled herself up, ignoring her body's protests, and followed. Through the gap, she could see lights moving across the field. Flashlights, systematic and organized, sweeping in a grid pattern. They'd finished searching the mine. Now they were expanding the perimeter. It was only a matter of time. Callum watched for a moment, then turned back to her. "That USB drive, you said it has everything. Everything, names, dates, transactions. 6 years of evidence. Can you duplicate it?" Kira shook her head. "Need a computer?" Power. Time we don't have. Then we have to get it to someone who can use it. Someone Brennan doesn't own. FBI, I have a contact. Agent Evelyn Thatcher, Denver Field Office. She's been trying to build a case against Brennan for 18 months, but she can't get local cooperation. Can you reach her? Kira pulled out her phone. Dead. The crash had killed it, or the cold, or both. Callum pulled out his own, a satellite phone, bulky and expensive. Take it. Call her. Tell her what you have and where we are. Kira took the phone, started to dial, then stopped. What about you? I'm going to buy you time. How? Callum looked at Axel, then at the SIG still clutched in Kira's hand, then back at the approaching lights. Same way I always did, he said, by making them think twice about coming through that door. He moved to the barn's wall, started pulling loose boards free, creating firing positions. Axel followed, taking up a position near the largest gap, watching. Kira dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, a woman's voice answered. Professional alert despite the late hour. Thatcher. Agent Thatcher, this is Deputy Kira Donovan, Fremont County Sheriff's Department. I have evidence of corruption and cartel involvement at the highest levels of my department. I need immediate extraction and federal protection. A pause, then, Deputy Donovan, I know who you are. Your partner was Rowan Cross. Yes, ma'am. Where are you? Kira gave their position as best she could. Old Hendricks property northeast of the original cabin in the collapsed barn. I'm in Denver. 4 hours minimum to get a team to you. We don't have 4 hours. Then you need to survive for 4 hours. Thatcher's voice hardened. Can you do that? Kira looked at Callum, methodically turning the barn into a defensive position with nothing but loose boards and tactical experience. At Axel, injured and exhausted but still standing guard. At her own hands shaking with shock and blood loss. We'll have to, she said. Deputy Donovan, I need you to understand something. If you die before I get there, this case dies with you. Brennan's lawyers will bury that evidence so deep it'll never see daylight. So you stay alive. Whatever it takes. Yes, ma'am. 4 hours. I'm already moving. The line went dead. Kira lowered the phone. Outside, the flashlights had stopped their grid search. They'd found something. Boot prints, probably leading from the mine exit to the barn. Callum saw it too. They know we're here. FBI's coming. 4 hours. That's a long time. Yeah, he checked his watch. 3:17 a.m. sunrise wouldn't come until after 7. They had to hold this barn wounded and outnumbered and outgunned in the dark and cold for 4 hours. It was impossible. But Callum just nodded like impossible was something he dealt with every Tuesday. All right then, he said. Let's make them earn it. He looked at Kira and something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. They were both broken people who'd lost the things that defined them. Both survivors when they shouldn't have been. Both carrying guilt heavy enough to drown in. But they were still here, still breathing, still fighting, and they weren't going to stop now. Outside engines started. Headlights swung toward the barn and illuminating the gaps in the walls with harsh white light. Kira counted 5 vehicles, maybe 15 men. Sheriff Dalton Brennan's voice boomed across the field, amplified by a loudspeaker. Kira Donovan, this is your last chance. Come out now, hand over that drive, and I give you my word nobody else gets hurt. Callum snorted. His word. Worth less than the $10 you paid for this place. Hey, at least the cabin came with running water. He paused. Well, it would have if the pipes weren't frozen. Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the approaching doom, Kira almost laughed. Axel growled, not at the lights, at something else, something moving in the darkness beyond the headlights. They're flanking, Callum said, coming around both sides. Kira moved to the opposite wall, finding a gap that gave her a view. Sure enough, shadows moved through the snow. 3 men, maybe 4, circling wide. We can't hold both sides, she said. We don't have to hold. We just have to make them hesitate, make them think. Callum pulled something from his jacket, a road flare, the kind kept in emergency kits. They think we're desperate, cornered, easy prey. Let's change that narrative. He struck the flare. It burst to life, spitting red sparks and acrid smoke. He tossed it through the gap in the wall. It landed in the snow between the barn and the approaching vehicles, burning like a signal fire. For a moment, everything stopped. The flanking men froze. The vehicle's engines idled. Then Callum fired. Not at anyone. Just a single shot aimed high and to the left, punching through the roof of the nearest truck. The reaction was immediate. The flanking men dropped flat. The vehicle's lights killed. Shouts erupted, confused and angry. Callum's voice carried across the field, hard and cold and completely without fear. Next one doesn't miss, silence. Then Brennan again, but he'd lost the smooth confidence. Now he just sounded pissed. You just made the worst mistake of your life, friend. Wouldn't be the first time, Callum called back. Won't be the last, but you're going to have to come in here and get us. And I promise you, Sheriff, that's going to cost more than you're willing to pay. He looked at Kira. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Bought us maybe 10 minutes while they regroup and make a new plan. 10 minutes, Kira repeated. Out of 4 hours. It's a start. Axel pressed against Callum's leg. The dog's eyes reflected the red glow of the flare amber turned to fire. His ears swiveled, constantly tracking sounds Kira couldn't hear. She checked the SIG. 15 rounds. That was all. Against 15 men with rifles, body armor, and absolutely no reason to take them alive. The odds were laughable, but then she thought about Rowan. About how he'd spent 3 years gathering evidence, knowing every day could be his last. About how he'd hidden that evidence, left those clues died, believing someone would finish what he started. And she thought about Callum, who'd lost everything but still showed up when it mattered. About Axel, broken and discarded but still willing to fight. About how sometimes the only thing you had left was the choice to keep standing. Kira ejected the SIG's magazine, checked the rounds, slapped it back home. The mechanical sound was satisfying, final. All right, she said, let's earn these 4 hours. Outside, the flanking men started moving again, slower now, more cautious, but still coming. The siege was beginning, and deep in her pocket, small and unremarkable and worth more than all their lives combined, the USB drive waited. Evidence, truth, justice. If they could just survive long enough to deliver it. The wind picked up, howling through the barn's gaps, carrying with it the promise of more snow and harder cold. Dawn was hours away. Help was hours away. They had nothing but an injured SEAL, a traumatized K-9, and a deputy who refused to die until she'd finished her partner's work. It would have to be enough, because there was no other choice. The flare died. Darkness rushed back in like water, filling a hole, absolute and suffocating. For 3 heartbeats, nothing moved. Then the muzzle flashes started. They came from 3 positions simultaneously, northwest and directly south. Not aimed shots suppressing fire, meant to keep heads down while the assault teams moved. Bullets punched through the barn's weathered boards, sending splinters flying. One round passed so close to Kira's head, she felt the displacement of air against her cheek. She dropped flat, pressing herself into the frozen dirt. Beside her, Callum had already moved low, crawling to a different firing position. Axel stayed between them, body coiled tight, waiting for a command that hadn't come yet. The firing stopped as suddenly as it started. In the ringing silence that followed, Kira heard boots crunching through snow. Multiple sets moving in coordinated bounds. Military tactics. Someone down there knew what they were doing. Callum heard it too. His jaw tightened. They've got at least 1 vet on their team. Moving in fire team rushes. 3 to 5 second bounds covering each other's movement. Can you tell how many? 6, maybe 8 in the assault element. Rest are providing overwatch. He shifted position again, peering through a gap. They're going to try to overwhelm us with speed and numbers. Kira's hands tightened on the SIG. 15 rounds. She did the math. It wasn't good. A voice cut through the darkness. Not Brennan this time, younger, familiar. Deputy Donovan or Carl Hutchins, the man who brought donuts on Fridays, who'd helped her study for her sergeant's exam. We don't want to hurt you. Just throw out the drive, and we'll talk this through. Kira didn't answer. Couldn't trust her voice. Carl tried again. Think about this. You're wounded, you're cornered, and you're protecting evidence for a man who's already dead. Rowan's gone, Kira. This doesn't bring him back. Her finger moved to the SIG's trigger. It would be so easy. One shot through the gap, aimed at Carl's voice. She knew she could make it. Knew she could put a round center mass from this distance. But Callum's hand found her wrist. Gentle pressure. Not restraining, just reminding. Save it, he whispered. They're trying to provoke you into giving away your position. He was right. She knew he was right. But God, it was hard. 30 seconds, Carl called. Then we're coming in. Callum moved fast, pulled 3 more road flares from his jacket. He'd raided the cabin's emergency supplies during those frantic minutes before the chase. He handed 2 to Kira. On my mark, throw yours left. I'll go right. Axel knows what to do. What's he going to do? Create chaos. Was it Kira wanted to ask more, but there was no time. Carl was counting down now. 20 seconds. Callum positioned himself at the largest gap in the south wall. Axel moved beside him, muscles bunched ready. 15, Kira struck her flares. They ignited with a hiss and a shower of sparks burning red and chemical bright. 10, hell. Now, Callum said. Kira threw both flares left as hard as she could. They tumbled through the air, trailing smoke, landing in the snow 30 yards out. The red light illuminated three men in sheriff's department jackets caught mid-advance. Callum threw his right. It landed closer, maybe 20 yards, and suddenly the field was lit like a stage, shadows dancing wild across the snow. The deputies froze, night vision destroyed, suddenly visible and vulnerable. Callum fired twice. Not at the men at the ground in front of them. Snow exploded upward. The deputies dove for cover, and Axel went. The dog launched through the gap with a speed that belied his injuries. 85 pounds of trained aggression hitting the snow at a dead run, snarling now loud and vicious and utterly terrifying in the red-lit darkness. He didn't attack, didn't bite, just charged straight at the nearest deputy, Pete Vasquez, close enough that Pete could see, teeth could hear the growl vibrating in that massive chest, could feel hot breath on his face. Pete screamed, actually screamed, fired his rifle into the air, and scrambled backwards so fast he fell, and suddenly the careful assault was breaking down into chaos. Axel pivoted, charged the next position. Another deputy fired wild rounds going high. The dog dropped low, circled, came at them from a different angle. Never attacking, never stopping. Just a constant moving threat that their training hadn't prepared them for. "Fall back," someone yelled. "Fall back." The assault teams retreated to their vehicles, firing as they went. But they were shooting at shadows now, at a dog that moved like smoke, and a threat they couldn't pin down. Axel limped back through the gap, tongue lolling, favoring that rear leg heavily. But his tail was up, ears forward. If a dog could smile, he was smiling. Callum grabbed his collar, pulled him close. "Good boy. Best damn wingman I ever had." Kira was hollering. "You trained him to do that?" "No. He was already trained, i.e. to detection, patrol, assault support. I just reminded him he still knows how." Callum scratched behind Axel's ears. "They retired him because they said his PTSD made him unpredictable. What they meant was he thinks for himself instead of just following commands. That makes him dangerous to work with in a conventional unit. But perfect for this." "Yeah." Outside engines started. The vehicles were repositioning, pulling back to a safer distance. Regrouping. Brennan's voice crackled over a radio. Kira could just barely make out the words through the barn walls. "Contain them. Wait for daylight. Not worth losing men over." They'd bought more time. Maybe an hour. Maybe less. Callum checked his watch. 3:34 a.m. 3.5 hours until the FBI arrived. Might as well be 3.5 years. Kira sagged against the wall, adrenaline fading, leaving behind only exhaustion and pain. Her shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. Her ribs ground against each other with every breath. The cold was seeping in deep now, making her thoughts sluggish. Shock. She was going deeper into shock. Callum saw it. Moved to her side, started checking her vitals again. Pulse too fast, skin too pale. Shaking that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Talk to me," he said quietly. "Stay focused. Tell me about Rowan." Kira's eyes found his. "Why treat?" "Because you need to stay conscious and talking helps. And because I want to know about the man who started this." She nodded slowly, tried to organize thoughts that kept slipping away. He was the best cop I ever knew. 20 years on the job. Could have made chief, could have gone anywhere, but he stayed. Said someone had to remember why we wore the badge. He was your training officer." "Yeah, 6 years ago, fresh out of the academy, scared out of my mind. He took me under his wing, taught me everything." She smiled, but it hurt. "Used to say, don't just enforce the law, Kira. Be worthy of it." "Sounds like a good man." "He was. That's why they killed him." The bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. Callum didn't flinch from it, just waited. 3 years ago, Kira continued, we got a call, domestic dispute out near the county line. By the time we got there, the husband was gone, wife was half dead. While we waited for the ambulance, Rowan found cocaine. Not user amounts, dealer amounts. 2 kilos in the garage, wrapped and ready for distribution. She paused, gathering strength. We called it in, requested a detective evidence team, the works. But the drugs never made it to evidence. The report got lost. The case was closed as a domestic nothing else. Rowan asked questions, got shut down, asked more questions, got transferred to night shift. But he didn't stop. No, he started investigating on his own time, tracked down where that house was in the supply chain. Found 3 more houses just like it. Started documenting everything in his personal notebook. Then he found the pattern. What pattern? Every house was in a neighborhood recently cleared by sheriff's deputies. Every house had the same protection. Complaints were ignored, searches were declined, investigations were dropped, and every single one was in districts overseen by Sheriff Brennan or Chief Deputy Catherine Vance. Callum's expression darkened. How high does it go? We don't know. That's what Rowan was trying to figure out when he disappeared. Kira touched her pocket where the USB drive rested. His last entry was dated 3 days before he vanished. He'd gotten video of Brennan meeting with someone at the cabin, your cabin, a cartel lieutenant named Ochoa. The exchange was $400,000 in cash for protection and distribution rights. And Rowan recorded it. Yeah, hid the camera in the trees, got the whole thing. Then he went home and wrote one more note in his book. Tomorrow I'm going to the FBI. Finally have enough to make it stick. That was the last thing he ever wrote. They found out. Kira nodded, feeling tears burn behind her eyes. Shock or grief or rage, she couldn't tell anymore. Someone must have told Brennan. Someone Rowan trusted. The next day, Rowan's truck went off Highway 287 straight down into Burnt Fork Canyon. Burned on impact. They said he fell asleep at the wheel. Said the evidence showed no signs of foul play. But there was evidence. I found it 6 months later, his notebook hidden in his locker at the station. The USB drive was taped to the back of his desk drawer. He'd left clues, breadcrumbs. Like he knew. Like he was planning for the possibility he wouldn't make it. Her voice broke. He knew they were going to kill him, and he did it anyway. Callum was quiet for a long moment. Then he sounds like the kind of man who deserved a better partner than the one who betrayed him. We still don't know who. Could have been anyone. Pete Carl, the shift supervisor, even the dispatcher. Rowan was careful, but he had to trust someone. And that someone got him killed. Yes. Axel pushed his head against Kira's leg. She buried her good hand in his fur, drawing comfort from the solid warmth of him. The dog leaned into the touch, offering what comfort he could. Outside, the wind had picked up again. Snow fell harder now. Thick flakes that would cover tracks, reduce visibility, make any rescue attempt that much harder. The temperature was dropping too. Kira could see her breath forming. Clouds could feel the cold working its way through her uniform into her bones. Callum shrugged out of his jacket. Put this on. You'll freeze. I've got better circulation than you do right now. Take it. She didn't have the strength to argue. The jacket was heavy-lined and still warm from his body heat. She pulled it around her shoulders, and it felt like being wrapped in a blanket. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. Why are you helping me? The question came out before she could stop it. You don't know me. This isn't your fight. You could have just locked that door and let them take me. Callum looked at her. Really looked at her the way he had in the cabin before the world exploded into violence and chaos. His storm gray eyes held something she couldn't quite name. Regret, maybe, or recognition. Fallujah, he said quietly. 2019. My team was doing a sweep of a suspected safe house. We heard screaming inside. A woman begging for help in English. My team leader said we didn't have time, we needed to move to the primary objective. I agreed. We moved on. He paused, swallowed hard. Turns out there really was a woman in there. American journalist kidnapped 3 weeks earlier. She'd heard our voices called for help. We walked away. By the time we came back with a rescue team, they'd moved her. We found her body 2 months later in a mass grave outside Mosul. The pain in his voice was raw, fresh despite the years. I told myself we had orders. We had a mission. We did everything by the book. But that woman still died because when she needed help, I walked away. His jaw tightened. I don't walk away anymore. Not for anyone. Kira understood then. Understood why he'd opened that door, why he'd armed her, why he was willing to die in this barn rather than surrender. He wasn't saving her. He was saving himself, saving the part of him that had died in Fallujah when he chose the mission over the person. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. Just live long enough to make this mean something. A sound cut through the night, distant at first, then growing louder. A vehicle approaching, but different from the trucks already surrounding them. Bigger engine, heavier. Callum moved to the gap, looked out. His expression went flat. They brought an MRAP. An MRAP. A what? Mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicle. Basically a tank designed to survive IEDs, military surplus. Departments have been buying them cheap for years. He turned back to her, and for the first time since this started, she saw worry in his eyes. That thing can drive straight through this barn like it's tissue paper. As if on cue, Brennan's voice boomed across the field again. Last chance, deputy, that barn won't stop what's coming. Throw out the drive and walk away. Kira looked at Callum, at Axel, at the USB drive in her hand, at the barn walls that suddenly seemed as substantial as paper. 3.25 hours until help arrived. They'd never make it. She knew it. Callum knew it. Probably even Axel knew it. But she also knew Rowan had died for what was on this drive. Knew that if Brennan got his hands on it, everything her partner had sacrificed would be for nothing. The corruption would continue. The drugs would keep flowing. Good people would keep dying. She couldn't let that happen. There has to be another way out, she said. Callum shook his head. This barn backs up to a granite ridge. Only way out is the way we came in, and they've got that covered. Then we make them think like we're surrendering. Buy time for what? They're not going to wait 3 hours. The moment that MRAP starts moving, we've got maybe 60 seconds before this whole structure comes down. Kira's mind raced shock and cold, making thoughts hard to hold. There had to be something. Some option they hadn't considered. Her eyes fell on Callum's satellite phone. The evidence, she said suddenly. We don't need to hold them off until the FBI gets here. We just need to get the evidence to someone who can use it. You already called Thatcher. I know, but what if we could upload it, send it digitally? Callum frowned. That phone's satellite. Data transfer is going to be slow, and we'd need to compress the files first. The connection's not stable enough for large uploads. How long? He calculated. Best case, 25-30 minutes to compress and send the critical files. If the connection holds and we prioritize the video evidence over the documents. Can you do it? Yeah, but you'd have to keep them off me while I work. And if they breach before the upload finishes, then we make sure they don't breach. Callum looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had, but it was the only play they had left. Give me the phone, she said. I'll upload the files. You and Axel hold the door. You can barely stand. I can sit. I can hold a phone. That's all this takes. She met his eyes. You said you don't walk away anymore. Neither do I. So let's finish what Rowan started. For a moment, Callum didn't move. Then he nodded slowly, pulled out the sat phone, and handed it over. The upload program's already installed. Just connect the drive and follow the prompts. Send it to this number. He rattled off Agent Thatcher's direct line. When it's done, call her again. Tell her we sent the package. And if I don't get the chance, then the upload will speak for itself. He moved back to his firing position. Axel followed, taking up station beside him. The dog's eyes reflected what little light filtered through the gaps, amber and steady and utterly calm, despite the approaching threat. Kira plugged the USB drive into the phone's adapter with shaking hands. The screen lit up impossibly bright in the darkness. She squinted against it, found the upload program started entering Thatcher's number. Outside, the MRAP's engine revved. The vehicle was moving into position. Her fingers fumbled on the phone's keyboard. Too slow, too clumsy. The cold had stolen feeling from her hands, making every keystroke a guess. The number went through. The upload program opened. 73 files, total size 4.2 gigabytes. She selected the video files first, the ones showing Brennan taking money. Then the financial spreadsheets. The documents could wait if they had to. Priority files 847 megabytes. Estimated upload time 26 minutes. She hit send. A progress bar appeared. 1%, 2%. It's going, she said. Callum nodded. Didn't take his eyes off the gap in the wall. Then we buy you 26 minutes. The MRAP's engine roared. Through the gaps, Kira could see it now, a massive angular beast of armor plating and reinforced glass. It rolled forward slowly, treads churning through the snow, headed straight for the barn's south wall. 60 seconds, Callum said quietly. When it hits, the whole structure's going to shift. Stay low, cover your head. What about you? I'll be fine. He was lying. They both knew it, but there was nothing else to say. The MRAP picked up speed. 50 yards out, 40, 30. Axel growled deep and continuous. Not afraid, angry, ready, 20 yards. Callum raised his weapon. Not aimed at the MRAP bullets, wouldn't do anything to that armor. Aimed at the men who would follow it through the breach. 10 yards. Kira curled around the phone, protecting it with her body. The upload bar read 7%. 24 minutes to go. 5 yards. Here it comes, Callum said. The MRAP hit the barn's south wall like the fist of God. The impact was beyond sound. It was pressure force, a physical blow that lifted Kira off the ground and slammed her back down. The barn's frame shrieked, wood splintering and tearing. The roof sagged, beams snapping like toothpicks. Dust and debris filled the air, choking blinding. Kira hit the ground hard, ribs screaming. The phone flew from her hands, skittering across the dirt floor. She scrambled after it, fingers grasping, finding it just as it slid toward a gap in the floorboards. The screen was cracked, but still lit, still uploading. 11%. Through the dust and chaos, she heard Callum firing. Controlled pairs the way they taught in the military. 2 shots assessed, 2 more. Not spraying and praying, choosing targets, making every round count. Then Axel's snarls, vicious and primal. The dog had engaged. Kira pulled herself to a sitting position, back against what was left of the wall. Through the settling dust, she could see the MRAP had punched a hole 8 feet wide in the barn's south side. Men were pouring through 4, 5, 6 of them. Sheriff's deputies in tactical gear, rifles up, moving in a trained stack. Callum fired. The lead man went down, hit in the leg. Not fatal, but he was out of the fight. The stack broke, men diving for cover behind debris. One of them swung his rifle toward Callum. Axel hit him from the side. 85 pounds of dog traveling at full speed, jaws clamping down on the man's gun arm. The deputy screamed, lost his grip on the rifle. Axel dragged him backwards, shaking his head like a wolf with prey. Off to! Callum's command cut through the chaos. Axel, released, immediately dropped back to a defensive position. The deputy scrambled away, clutching his mangled arm. But more were coming. So many more. Callum was down to his last magazine, maybe 10 rounds, against at least a dozen men who knew reinforcements were right outside. Kira checked the phone. 19%, 21 minutes left. They'd never make it. A new voice shouted from outside the barn, "Cease fire! Cease fire!" The shooting stopped. In the sudden quiet, Kira could hear her own ragged breathing, Axel's panting, the creak and groan of the barn's damaged frame. Then footsteps. Slow, measured, confident. Sheriff Dalton Brennan stepped through the hole the MRAP had made. He was exactly as Kira remembered from the video on the USB. Tall, broad, late 50s with iron gray hair and a mustache that belonged in a Western. He wore a sheriff's jacket over body armor, a duty belt with a holstered pistol. No rifle, no need for one. He had a dozen men with guns backing him up. His eyes found Kira first, then Callum, then Axel, bloodied and growling. Finally, they settled on the sat phone in Kira's lap. "Deputy Donovan," he said, voice calm as Sunday morning. "You've caused me a lot of trouble tonight." Kira didn't answer, just held his gaze, one hand wrapped around the phone. Brennan took another step forward. Callum's weapon tracked him, but the sheriff didn't even flinch. "That man with you," Brennan continued, "he's going to die if you keep this up. That dog, too. All for a piece of plastic that won't do you any good anyway." "The FBI disagrees." Brennan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "The FBI's 3 hours out, deputy. You won't last 3 minutes. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that drive and that phone, then you and your friend are going to walk out of here. You have my word." "Your word," Kira almost laughed. "Like you gave Rowan your word." The smile vanished. Rowan Cross was a good man who made bad choices. He chose to investigate things that weren't his business. He chose to stick his nose where it didn't belong. And yes, he chose to trust the wrong person. Who? Does it matter? He's dead either way. The casual cruelty of it, the complete lack of remorse, made something inside Kira snap. She started to raise the SIG, pain and shock forgotten, ready to put a bullet in that smug face, even if it cost her everything. Callum's hand caught her wrist. "Not yet." Brennan chuckled. "Listen to your friend, deputy. He knows when he's beaten." He extended his hand. "The drive. Now." Kira looked at the phone. 26%, 19 minutes left. She looked at Callum, at Axel, at the deputies surrounding them, weapons raised. Then she looked back at Brennan and smiled. A real smile, wild and a little bit insane. "Come and take it." Brennan's expression went cold. "Last chance." "That's what you said 3 chances ago." His hand moved to his holster. "I was hoping we could do this civilized." "Nothing civilized about you, Sheriff." Rowan figured that out. "I'm just slow to catch up." Brennan drew his pistol, aimed it at Kira's head. "I'll ask one more time." The upload bar ticked to 28%. Kira met his eyes. "You're going to have to shoot me for it, and when you do, every one of your men is going to see you execute an unarmed deputy. That video is going to look real good at your murder trial." "Who says there'll be witnesses?" "You really think you can make a dozen men forget what they saw? How much are you paying them?" "Sheriff, enough to make them accessories to murder." She raised her voice so the deputies could hear. "That's what this is. He's not asking you to arrest me. He's asking you to help him murder a cop. And when the FBI gets here, when they start making deals, who do you think rolls first? The man in charge or the guys who pulled the triggers? Doubt flickered across some of the deputies' faces. Kira saw it, so did Brennan. Don't listen to her, the sheriff snapped. She's wanted for assaulting officers and theft of evidence. We're bringing in a violent fugitive, nothing more. Then why do you look so scared? Kira pressed. Why bring an MRAP for one wounded deputy? Why risk all these lives for a USB drive if there's nothing on it? 32%. Carl Hutchins stepped forward. Sheriff, maybe we should... Shut up, Carl. But Carl did not shut up. I signed on to run drugs, not kill cops. This is getting out of hand. I said shut up. Brennan swung his pistol toward Carl. For a moment, Kira thought he'd actually shoot one of his own men. But Pete Vasquez was already moving, stepping between them. Enough, Pete said quietly. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Brennan's control was slipping, the calm facade cracking. That drive has everything: bank accounts, drop locations, distribution, networks. If it gets out, we all go down. Then maybe we were already going down, Pete said. Maybe we were from the moment we crossed the line. 38%. Brennan's face went red. You spineless! Callum's voice cut through the rising argument. Sheriff, you've got a choice to make. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood there, weapons still raised, but not aimed at anyone in particular. Just ready, waiting. You can kill us, Callum continued. Silence the witnesses. Take the drive. Maybe you even get away with it for a while. But that FBI agent Deputy Donovan called, she's coming whether we're alive or dead. And when she gets here, she's going to find a destroyed barn, blood everywhere, and a dozen of your men who'll be facing federal conspiracy charges. He paused, let that sink in. Or stay, he said, you can walk away right now, get in your vehicles and disappear. Because in about 17 minutes, that drive finishes uploading to the FBI. At that point, it won't matter if you kill us or not. The evidence is out there. Can't take it back. Can't bury it. It's over. Brennan's gun swung toward Callum. You're bluffing. Am I? Callum nodded toward the phone in Kira's lap. Check the screen. Brennan looked, saw the upload bar. 43% now. Watched it tick to 44. His face went white. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the wind howling through the destroyed barn and the labored breathing of too many people in too small a space. Then Brennan lowered his weapon. You just killed yourself, deputy, he said quietly. Both of you, you know that, right? Even if I walk away, even if I run, there are people above me, people who won't let this stand. You're dead, just a matter of when. Maybe, Kira said, but Rowan will be avenged. That's enough. Brennan stared at her for another moment. Then he turned and walked out through the hole in the wall. Most of the deputies followed him, but not all. Carl stayed. Pete stayed. 3 others Kira didn't know well. They looked at each other. At her. At the phone showing 51%. We'll testify, Carl said quietly. Whatever you need, we'll tell the truth. Kira nodded, not trusting her voice. The men left. Through the gap, she watched the vehicle start up. Watched them drive away into the darkness, taillights fading, until there was nothing left but snow and wind and the first gray hint of approaching dawn. They were alone. Callum lowered his weapon, sagged against the wall. His right hand was shaking badly now. Fingers curled into a claw. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind only pain. Axel limped to his side, pressed his head against Callum's leg. The dog was favoring his injured hip, badly panting, heart exhausted beyond measure. Kira checked the phone. 68%. 8 minutes left. She started laughing. Couldn't help it. Shock, relief, hysteria, all of it bubbling up at once. Callum looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. We did it, she said through the laughter. We actually did it. Not yet. Still 8 minutes. Still 8 minutes, she agreed. They sat there into the ruins of the barn, watching the progress bar creep upward. 73%, 80, 90. At 96%, Kira's vision started to gray out. The cold and blood loss and shock were finally catching up. She felt herself tilting, falling. Callum caught her, eased her down until she was lying with her head in his lap. Axel curled up beside them, adding his warmth to hers. Keep your eyes open, Callum said. 5 more minutes. You can do 5 minutes. Kira focused on the phone screen. 98%, 99, 100, upload complete. The words appeared in green letters. Beautiful. Perfect. Kira used the last of her strength to dial Thatcher's number. The agent answered on the first ring. Donovan. Package sent, Kira whispered. All of it. I've got it. I'm seeing the files now. Dear God, this is... Thatcher's voice was tight with controlled fury. We've got him. We've got all of them. Good. Kira's eyes were closing. That's good. Stay on the line. I've got a chopper 5 minutes out. Can't. Too tired. Deputy Donovan, Kira, you need to stay awake. But the darkness was warm and welcoming, and Kira was so tired. She felt Callum's hand on her shoulder, heard Axel's worried whine, heard the distant thump of helicopter rotors. Then nothing. Just peace. Kira woke to whiteness. Not the harsh white of snow or the sterile white of hospital walls, but something softer. Filtered sunlight through curtains. Clean sheets. The steady beep of monitors tracking her heartbeat. She tried to move and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her shoulder, her ribs, every muscle in her body. A hand pressed gently on her uninjured shoulder, keeping her still. Easy. A woman's voice. Professional calm. You're safe, street. Vincent's Hospital, Denver. You've been out for 16 hours. Kira's eyes focused slowly. The woman standing beside the bed was in her late 40s, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, sharp features that suggested she didn't smile often. She wore a navy blazer over a white shirt, an FBI badge clipped to her belt. Agent Thatcher. Kira managed her voice coming out as a rasp. The same. Thatcher poured water from a pitcher, held the cup to Kira's lips. Small sips. Your body's been through hell. The water was cold perfect. Kira drank greedily until Thatcher pulled the cup away. More in a minute. First, let's talk about what happened after you passed out. Kira's mind struggled to piece together the fragments. The barn, the upload, darkness. Callum, she said suddenly. Axel, are they both alive? Hayes is 2 floors down, getting his arm looked at. Nerve damage flared up badly during the firefight. They're running tests to see if there's permanent worsening. The dog's at an emergency veterinary clinic. Hip injury aggravated, but the vet says he'll make a full recovery with rest and physical therapy. Relief flooded through Kira so powerfully it made her dizzy. Thank God. You should thank Hayes. He kept pressure on your wounds until the medevac arrived. Stayed conscious the whole time despite his own injuries. Probably saved your life. Thatcher pulled up a chair, sat. Now, let's talk about what you gave me. The files are everything you promised and more. 73 documents, 4 videos, 6 years of financial records. We've identified 14 officers in 3 counties involved in the distribution network. $27 million in laundered money. Direct ties to the Ochoa cartel out of Sinaloa. Thatcher's expression was grim satisfaction. In one night, Deputy Donovan, you handed us the biggest corruption case in Wyoming history. Brennan, arrested 4 hours ago trying to cross into Montana. Pulled him over on I-90, found $200,000 in Wyoming and a fake passport in his trunk. He lawyered up immediately, but it won't help. We've got him on video taking cartel money. His bank records match payments to the exact dollar. It's airtight. And Chief Deputy Vance. Thatcher's jaw tightened. That's where it gets interesting. We raided her home at dawn. Found her in her garage with her service weapon and a bottle of whiskey. She'd written out a full confession. 20 pages detailing the entire operation, how it started, who was involved, everything. Kira's stomach twisted. She killed herself. No, we got there in time. She's in custody, cooperating fully. Says she wants to make it right, whatever that means. Thatcher leaned forward. She also told us who betrayed Rowan Cross. The room seemed to tilt. Kira gripped the bed rail. Who? Detective Marcus Webb, Narcotics Division. He and Rowan were friends for 15 years. Webb was the one Rowan told about going to the FBI. Webb called Brennan. They staged the accident together. Kira closed her eyes. Marcus Webb. She'd met him twice, maybe 3 times. Quiet man, always seemed tired. Had a daughter in college. Where is he now? Dead. Ate his gun 2 hours after we arrested Brennan. Left a note apologizing to his daughter. Thatcher's voice held no sympathy. Coward's way out. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, Denver sprawled in afternoon sunlight. Cars moved on distant highways. People went about their lives unaware that in this hospital room, the pieces of a massive conspiracy were finally falling into place. What happens now? Kira asked. Now we build cases. Federal prosecutors are already drawing up indictments. 14 officers will be charged with conspiracy, drug trafficking, money laundering, and in Brennan's case, murder. Vance is cooperating, so she'll likely get a reduced sentence. The others, Thatcher shrugged. They'll spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. And me, you're a hero deputy, or you will be once this goes public. Thatcher straightened her jacket. But that's going to take time. Right now, you need to heal. Doctor says you'll be here at least a week. Shoulder surgery tomorrow morning, rib monitoring, treating the infection. After that, administrative leave while internal affairs does their investigation. They think I did something wrong. Standard procedure when an officer's involved in a shooting. Don't worry, it's a formality. You'll be cleared. Thatcher moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Deputy Donovan, your partner, would be proud. You finished what he started. After Thatcher left, Kira lay back against the pillows and let the tears come. Silent, exhausting, necessary. She cried for Rowan, for the life he should have lived. For Marcus Webb's daughter who'd lost her father to his own weakness. For all the people harmed by the drugs that had flowed through Brennan's network. And she cried for herself, for the deputy she'd been 3 days ago who trusted her department, her colleagues, her chain of command. That woman was gone. Killed in a cabin in the mountains, along with any illusions about the badge, automatically meaning honor. The door opened again. Kira wiped her eyes, expecting a nurse. It was Callum. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. His right arm was in a sling, bandaged from wrist to elbow. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He moved stiffly, like every joint hurt. But he was standing, moving, alive. Heard you were awake, he said. Heard you saved my life. Yeah, well, seemed rude to let you die after all that effort to stay alive. He pulled up the chair Thatcher had vacated, lowered himself into it carefully. How you feeling? Like I got shot and rolled a car and fought off a small army. She managed a weak smile. You. Doctors say the nerve damage is worse. Whatever I did in that barn finished off what was left. Right arm's basically useless now. He said it without emotion, just stating facts. Can't grip, can't shoot, can't do much of anything with it. I'm sorry. Don't be. I knew the risk. He looked at his bandaged arm. Jaw tight. At least it mattered this time. They sat quietly for a moment. Through the window, Kira could see mountains in the distance, snow-capped and eternal. Somewhere out there was the barn where they'd made their stand, the cabin Callum had bought for $10, the mine shaft that had saved them. What will you do now? She asked. Callum shrugged with his good shoulder. Same as I planned before all this. Fix up that cabin, make it livable. Maybe take in a few other vets who need a place to land. Axel and I, we understand what it's like to be broken and discarded. Might as well share the space with others like us. You're not useless. Tell that to my arm. I'm telling it to you. Kira's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. You took on a dozen armed men with one working hand and a dog with hip problems. You held that barn when anyone else would have surrendered. You saved my life twice. That's not useless. That's heroic. Callum looked uncomfortable with the praise. Just did what needed doing. Exactly. She reached out with her good hand. He took it, his left hand engulfing hers. His palm was rough, warm, steady. Thank you, Callum Hayes. Thank you, Kira Donovan. The door opened a third time. A nurse entered, saw them holding hands and smiled. Sorry to interrupt, but Deputy Donovan needs rest. You can visit again this evening, Mr. Hayes. Callum stood, releasing Kira's hand. I'll bring Axel by when he's cleared to travel. He'll want to see you. I'd like that. He left. The nurse bustled around, checking monitors, adjusting IV drips, asking questions about pain levels and nausea. Kira answered automatically, her mind elsewhere. She was thinking about Rowan. About the notebook he'd hidden, the evidence he'd gathered, the sacrifice he'd made. She was thinking about Callum, who'd bought a cabin for $10 and found a purpose. About Axel, retired and written off, proving he still had fight left in him. About how sometimes the most broken things were also the strongest. The nurse gave her something for the pain. As sleep pulled her under, Kira made a promise to herself. When she got out of this hospital, when she healed enough to walk and breathe without agony, she was going to finish this properly. Not just by testifying at trials, by making sure Rowan's sacrifice meant something lasting. She was going to make sure this never happened again. The days that followed blurred together. Surgery to repair her shoulder. The surgeon said she'd been lucky. The bullet had missed major nerves and arteries by millimeters. Antibiotics for the infection that had been brewing in her wounds. Physical therapy that hurt worse than getting shot had. Kira endured it all with the same grim determination that had kept her alive in the barn. Callum visited daily, bringing news from outside. 3 more veterans had applied to stay at the cabin once he got it fixed up. The county had agreed to waive building permit fees as thanks for his help in bringing down Brennan. Axel was recovering well. The vet said the bullet had missed bone, and with rest and therapy, the dog would regain full mobility. Tell him I'll be back soon, Kira said. He knows. Dogs always know. On day 5, Senator Donovan visited. Her father stood awkwardly at the foot of her bed, hands in his pockets, looking older than she remembered. I'm sorry, he said finally, for not believing you about Brennan, for not being there when you needed me, for everything since your mother died. Kira looked at him, really looked, and saw an old man carrying regret like a physical weight. I'm sorry, too, for shutting you out, for blaming you. He moved closer, sat in the visitor's chair. Your mother would be so proud of you. What you did, the courage it took. I was just trying not to die. That's not what the FBI says. Agent Thatcher called me personally, said you saved lives. That the network you exposed was trafficking drugs that killed 17 people last year alone. And that's just the ones they know about. 17 people. Kira hadn't known, hadn't let herself think about the larger impact. Rowan did the hard part, she said. I just finished it. No, you did the impossible part. You survived. He reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. I know I haven't been much of a father these last few years, but I'm here now. And I'm going to make sure Brennan and everyone involved pays for what they did. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. On day 8, Agent Thatcher brought a laptop, let Kira review the evidence files, showed her the case they were building. The indictments being prepared. The dominoes falling. We're going to clean house, Thatcher promised. Every corrupt officer, every dirty politician, every piece of this network. It ends now. Good, Kira said. There's something else. Thatcher's expression shifted. We'd like you to join the FBI, task force investigating rural corruption. You'd be based out of Denver, but traveling a lot. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, wherever the work takes you. Kira stared at her. You want me to do this again? I want you to make sure it doesn't happen again. You've seen how these networks operate. You know the signs. And you've proven you won't back down when it matters. Thatcher leaned forward. Think about it. No pressure, but the offer's there when you're ready. On day 13, the doctor cleared her for discharge. Take it easy. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity. Come back in 2 weeks for follow-up. Kira was out the door before he finished talking. Callum drove her back to the refuge. That's what he was calling it now. Rowan's Refuge. The name felt right. When they pulled up, Axel was waiting on the porch. The dog's tail wagged so hard his whole back end shook. A small bandage still wrapped his injured leg, but he was standing square weight, distributed evenly. Kira dropped to her knees, buried her face in his fur. I'm home, boy. I'm home. Axel leaned into her, making small whining sounds of joy and relief. Callum stood back, giving them their moment. That night, sitting on the cabin porch watching stars emerge, Kira made her decision. I'm going to do it, she said. Join the FBI. Hunt down networks like Brennan's. Callum nodded slowly. Figured you would. But I need a home base. Somewhere I can come back to between assignments. Somewhere that doesn't remind me of everything I lost. She looked at him. Could I stay here, pay rent, help with repairs, whatever you need? You don't pay rent. You're family now. You and me and Axel, we went through something together. That means something. Callum paused. But if you want to contribute, you can help me build the bunkhouses. Planning to add 3 more buildings on the property. Space for 12 residents plus staff. Going to need every set of hands I can get. I can do that? Then you've got a deal. They shook on it, and for the first time since Rowan died, Kira felt like she was moving forward instead of just surviving. 2 weeks later, Kira stood in front of a small headstone in Fremont County Cemetery. The stone was simple black granite with gold lettering. Rowan Michael Cross, Deputy Sheriff, beloved partner, faithful officer. Be worthy of the badge, 1978 to 2022. Someone had left fresh flowers. Kira added hers to the collection, wildflowers from the mountains, the kind Rowan had loved. She stood there for a long time, one hand resting on the cool stone, trying to find words. We got them, she finally said, all of them. Brennan's looking at life without parole. Vance got 20 years. The others anywhere from 10 to 30. Federal prosecutors say it's the strongest case they've had in a decade. A breeze moved through the cemetery, rustling the trees. Kira imagined it was Rowan listening. Agent Thatcher offered me a position with the FBI, task force investigating corruption in rural departments. Good pay, real resources, chance to make a difference on a bigger scale. She paused. I'm going to take it. I think you'd want me to. Footsteps approached from behind. She turned to find a man in his 60s wearing a suit that had seen better days. His hair was more gray than brown, his face deeply lined, but his eyes were sharp alert. Deputy Donovan, he extended his hand. Sheriff Hayes, Marin Hayes. I'm the new sheriff of Fremont County. Kira shook his hand. His grip was firm, honest. Sheriff, just wanted to introduce myself and to tell you that your badge is waiting whenever you're ready to come back. County commissioners asked me to extend that personally. I'm joining the FBI. I heard, can't say I blame you. Hayes looked at Rowan's headstone. I knew him, you know. Rowan. We came up through the academy together back in '98. Lost touch over the years, but I always respected him. He was one of the good ones. He was. What you did exposing all this, it took real courage. But it also left a hole in this department. We need people like you. Officers who remember why we wear the badge. He pulled out a business card, handed it to her. If you ever want to come home, there's a place for you here. Kira took the card, studied it. Sheriff Marin Hayes, the county seal, a phone number written on the back in pen. Thank you, Sheriff. That means a lot. Hayes tipped his hat and left. Kira stood alone with Rowan again, turning the card over in her fingers. Coming home. The phrase stuck with her. Because Fremont County didn't feel like home anymore. Maybe it never would again. Too much had happened. Too much had changed. But Callum's cabin in the mountains, that place she'd stumbled to bleeding and desperate, that might feel like home, if she let it. She said goodbye to Rowan and drove north. 6 months passed, the cabin grew. 2 bunkhouses went up, built with volunteer labor from vets who'd heard about the refuge and wanted to help. A communal kitchen was added. A small medical clinic staffed 3 days a week by a retired Army doctor who understood what these men and women had survived. Rowan's refuge officially opened on a crisp October morning. 30 people attended the dedication, including Agent Thatcher, Sheriff Hayes, and 5 other officers from Fremont County who'd been cleared of any connection to Brennan's network. Kira stood beside Callum as he unveiled the sign. Simple wood carved by hand mounted above the main cabin's door. Rowan's Refuge in memory of Deputy Rowan Cross, be worthy. The first residents moved in that afternoon. Tommy Reeves, a Marine sergeant with PTSD, so severe he couldn't hold a job. Jennifer Morrison, a former combat medic who'd been living in her car after her disability payments got cut. William Brooks, Navy veteran fighting addiction, desperate to rebuild his life and see his 3 kids again. They came broken, used up, written off by the system that had trained them to fight and then abandoned them when the fighting was done. Callum and Axel met them at the door, showed them their bunks, the common areas, the trails through the woods where they could walk and think and heal. Kira stayed in the background watching. This was Callum's vision, Callum's refuge. She was just a resident who happened to be gone most of the time, chasing corruption through 3 states. But when Tommy Reeves, the Marine with the shaking hands and the eyes that never stopped scanning for threats, asked quietly if there were any other cops around, Kira stepped forward. I'm FBI, she said, but I used to be a deputy. Lost my partner to the kind of people I hunt now. Tommy studied her, saw the scars on her shoulder where the surgery had been, the way she moved carefully to protect ribs that hadn't quite healed right. Saw someone who understood. You safe, he asked. The veteran's code. Are you one of the good ones? I try to be. He nodded. Didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. That night they gathered in the common room. 15 people counting residents and staff. Callum had brought in a grill, made burgers, kept things casual. No speeches, no ceremony. Just people sharing a meal. Kira found herself next to William Brooks, the Navy vet with the addiction issues. He was thin, nervous, wouldn't make eye contact. How long you been clean? She asked quietly. 47 days. That's good. That's really good. Doesn't feel good. Feels like I'm crawling out of my skin every goddamn minute. But you're doing it anyway. That takes strength. William finally looked at her. You really FBI? Yeah. You hunt bad guys. That's the job. Good. His jaw set. World needs more people hunting bad guys. Too many people making excuses for them. After dinner, after the residents had drifted off to their bunks or the quiet corners they'd claimed, Kira and Callum sat on the cabin's porch. Axel lay between them, snoring softly. The dog had earned his rest. He'd spent the day moving between residents, offering comfort, letting them pet him. Therapy dog training was paying off. Think it'll work? Callum asked. All of this? Yeah, Kira said. I do. How can you be sure? Because it's working on me. She gestured at the refuge, at the buildings they'd raised, and the community they were building. We're healing. Together. That's what this place is. Not a shelter. A place to heal. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge overhead. The same stars that had watched over them 6 months ago, when everything was chaos and blood and survival. So much had changed. Brennan was in federal prison trial set for March. Vance was serving her sentence, cooperating with every investigation. The 14 corrupt officers were awaiting trial. The cartel connection had been severed, at least in Wyoming, and Rowan's name was finally cleared. Not just cleared, honored. The county had renamed the stretch of highway where he died Rowan Cross Memorial Highway. Small recognition, but it mattered. A vehicle approached up the long driveway. Kira tensed, automatically hand-moving toward where her service weapon would have been if she'd been on duty. But it was just a pickup truck, old and battered. It parked and a woman got out. Late 20s, auburn hair moving with the careful precision of someone managing chronic pain. She looked at the refuge sign, then at the cabin, uncertainty written across her face. Callum stood. "Can we help you?" "I'm looking for Callum Hayes. I'm Dakota Palmer. Army discharge 2023. I heard about this place, about what you're doing." "You heard right." Callum descended the porch steps, hand extended. "Welcome to Rowan's Refuge." Dakota shook his hand, then looked past him to Kira. "You're Deputy Donovan. I saw you on the news. You took down that sheriff." "I had help." Kira stood, came down to join them. "Call me Kira." "I don't have much," Dakota said quickly, "but I can work. I was a mechanic in the Army. Can fix pretty much anything with an engine." "We can always use a mechanic," Callum said. "Come on, I'll show you around." As he led Dakota toward the bunkhouses, Axel at his heels, Kira stayed on the porch. She pulled out her phone, opened her contacts, scrolled to a name she'd saved 6 months ago but never called. Rowan Cross. Work. She'd transferred his number from the old department directory, kept it as a reminder, a promise. She opened a new message, typed slowly. "Got 3 more this month, partner. Task force made arrest in Montana. Dirty sheriff, 2 deputies, 1 county attorney. Your notebook gave us the pattern to follow. We're winning." She hit send, knowing the message would bounce back, knowing Rowan would never read it, but she'd keep sending them anyway. Monthly updates on the work. Evidence that his sacrifice mattered. Proof that the fight continued. Her phone buzzed. Agent Thatcher. "New case, Nebraska. County attorney protecting distribution network. Can you be in Omaha Monday?" Kira looked at the refuge, at the buildings glowing warm in the darkness. At Callum showing Dakota around, Axel limping faithfully beside them. At the safe place they'd built from a $10 cabin and a desperate stand in a winter barn. She typed back, "I'll be there," because this was her life now. Hunting corruption during the week, healing at the refuge on weekends. Building something good from all the broken pieces. It wasn't the life she'd planned. Wasn't the career she'd imagined when she'd put on the badge 6 years ago, young and idealistic and certain she could make a difference. But it was a life that mattered. And in the end, that was enough. 2 months before the trial, Senator Donovan called. "I'm introducing legislation, federal oversight for rural sheriff departments, mandatory corruption audits, whistleblower protections. I'm calling it the Rowan Cross Act." Well, Kira closed her eyes, feeling something tight in her chest finally loosen. He'd like that. "Will you come at a dusk when I introduce it?" "Stand with me." "Yes." March 15th arrived with cold, rain, and gray skies. Kira stood outside the federal courthouse in Cheyenne, watching news vans set up, reporters testing microphones. The trial of Sheriff Dalton Brennan was the biggest corruption case Wyoming had seen in decades. National news, cable coverage. Callum stood beside her, his right arm still in a sling. He'd driven down from the refuge that morning, bringing Axel. The dog sat between them, therapy vest on, calm and steady. "You ready?" Callum asked. "No," Kira admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." Inside, the courtroom was packed. Senator Donovan sat in the front row, her father come to support her publicly. Sheriff Hayes was there representing the clean department. Agent Thatcher sat with the prosecution team. And in the defendant's chair, wearing an orange jumpsuit and restraints, sat Dalton Brennan. He looked smaller than Kira remembered. Older. Diminished. Their eyes met. He smiled. Cold. Unrepentant. The prosecution called her first. "Deputy Donovan, please describe the events of January 17th, 2025. Kira took a breath, then began. She told them about Rowan, about the investigation he'd conducted alone because he couldn't trust his own department, about finding his notebook, his evidence, his final words. She told them about the chase, the crash, the cabin where a stranger named Callum Hayes had chosen to help rather than hide. She told them about the barn, the siege, the upload, the 26 minutes that felt like 26 years. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Several jurors were crying. Brennan's lawyer stood for cross-examination. "Deputy Donovan, isn't it true you were suffering from severe blood loss and shock during these alleged events?" "Yes." "So you can't be certain your memories are accurate?" Kira pulled out her phone. "The upload logs are time-stamped. The files are verified. My memories match the evidence exactly." "But you admit you were impaired." "I was shot, yes. I was bleeding, yes. I was terrified, yes." Kira's voice hardened. "But I was not wrong. Your client ran a drug distribution network that destroyed lives. He murdered my partner." And the evidence I uploaded, evidence that nearly cost my life, proves all of it. She looked at Brennan. You tried to make me forget, to make everyone forget. But some things are too important to forget. The lawyer sat down. As Kira left the witness stand, she walked past Brennan's chair. He leaned forward, whispered just loud enough for her to hear. Rowan screamed when we pushed his car over. Kira stopped. Her hand moved to where her service weapon would have been, but she wasn't armed. This was a courtroom, not a battlefield. She leaned down, whispered back, "You're going to die in prison, alone, forgotten." But Rowan, his name is on a refuge that saves lives every day. He'll be remembered long after your dust. She walked out head high and didn't look back. 3 days later, the jury returned. Guilty on all counts. Brennan got life without parole. Vance got 23 years. The other officers received sentences ranging from 8 to 35 years. Kira wasn't there to hear it. She was at the refuge teaching Tommy Reeves how to replace a roof beam. When Sheriff Hayes called with the news, she thanked him and hung up. Then she went back to work, because justice had been served, and life continued. The wind howled outside, snow beginning to fall. First snow of the season, early but not unexpected. Winter returning as it always did. But inside Rowan's refuge, the fire burned warm, the lights stayed bright, and 15 souls who'd been broken and discarded found safety, purpose, and the chance to heal. Kira closed her laptop, turned off the light, and lay back on her bed. Through the window, she could see stars between the clouds. The same stars that had watched over her in that barn 6 months ago, when survival seemed impossible. She'd made it. They'd all made it. And the work continued. Tomorrow, Nebraska. Next month, testimony at another trial. Next year, maybe expanding the refuge to Idaho. But tonight, just rest. Just peace. Just the knowledge that in a world full of darkness, they'd managed to build something that shone. Rowan would have been proud, and that in the end was all that mattered. The snow fell heavier, blanketing the refuge in white. Clean, pure, a fresh start written in nature's hand. Inside, Kira Donovan, deputy FBI agent, survivor builder, finally slept without nightmares. And in the bunkhouse, Tommy Reeves didn't check his door lock 15 times before bed. And in the workshop, Dakota Palmer looked at her hands and saw tools instead of weapons. And in the cabin, Callum Hayes held his ruined arm and felt not loss but gratitude for what it had let him build. And beside the fire, Axel dreamed not of explosions and death, but of running free through mountain meadows, whole and healthy and home. Healing wasn't fast, wasn't easy, wasn't guaranteed. But here in this place, built from a $10 cabin and watered with blood and tears, it was possible. And sometimes possible was enough. The refuge stood through that winter and the next, grew stronger, reached further, saved more lives. Because one deputy had refused to let her partner's death be meaningless. Because one SEAL had chosen to build instead of hide. Because one K9 had proven that the broken could still protect. And because sometimes in the darkest moments, the best of humanity shines through. This was their legacy. This was their stand. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.